Hello crafters, this is Yana Smakula. Welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while guys. Thank you for sticking with me and patiently waiting for me to upload a new video. Hopefully this one will make up for all the wait. Today I have several cards to share with you featuring the new October 2020 release from Colorado Craft Company. And this release is very special as the new stamps are illustrated by Anita Jeram. If you're not familiar with Anita's work, you can look her up online, and I'm sure you will fall in love with her illustrations as I did. There's also a giveaway at the end of this video, so be sure to stick around until the end. Now, these images are so beautiful, so whimsical, and I feel like it is exactly what we need right now. I have most of the new stamps here, so let's have a look, shall we? I'll start with the baby stamps first. Look at that darling mouse holding a huge ice cream and trying to eat it. So adorable. This set is called Ice Cream Day Mini. Next up is another darling mouse holding a paintbrush. And I love the sentiments here. This one says, a well-used brush is a good thing. And isn't that true? Other sentiments read, make something beautiful to share today and be creative. And this set is called Be Creative Mini. The next two sets are medium-sized sets with frames and sentiments. Both have 4 frames in various shapes and sizes. This first one has pretty sentiments such as the greatest moments in life are the most simplest. We are blessed, live, love, laugh, enjoy the little things, and love lives here. This set is called Wall Words. Now these frames are solid, while the other set has more of an outline style frames, doodle type frames, I should say. The other set is called This Is Us frames, and in addition to the frames, it has a little hanger to hang the frames on the wall, so to speak. Obviously, you won't be putting the frames on an actual wall, but just on an imaginary wall on your card. Next, we have larger stamp sets. These are 4x6 sets. First up is the Better Together stamp set. I love these images. I love these little illustrations. I love the fonts used for the messages. It is very different from what I'm normally used to, but sometimes different is good. Now, the next set is the cutest one for crafters, and it is called Wishing Happiness. I love the mice and the dogs holding paintbrushes and trying to paint. So adorable. And the sentiments here are just as cute, with one of them saying, sending tickles your way. The next stamp set is called Birthday Wishing, and you have a darling rabbit, a hamster, a group of mice, all celebrating a birthday. It is really cute set, and I have 2 cards to share made using just this set. The next set is filled with funny cats eating ice cream. It is called Ice Cream Day, and the cats' faces and expressions are just the cutest. You also have one cat that has dropped his ice cream in a sentiment about a 5-second rule. So funny. Other sentiments are of the encouragement type in this set, like, I'm here for you. Next up is a set that might feel pretty basic, but it has a ton of potential for background building. All of the cards I share today will, all but one, use this set to make a background. This is called Stripes and Dots, and this is a 3-part stamp with regular stripes, skinny stripes, and stripes with dots. These will help you make the same pattern as you see on the packaging of these stamps. Next, we have Kittens and Mittens, and this is, again, a super cute set. The sentiments read, if kisses were snowflakes, I'd send you a blizzard, and like mittens in winter, you warm my heart. Really sweet and darling set. Now, something I have failed to mention up until now is the illustrations included or printed on the packaging, on the back of the packaging. On the back, you have illustrated images from this stamp set, giving you ideas on how to color these images. I did find that incredibly helpful, and I've used the packaging as inspiration for all the cards I have for you today. For example, the Stripes and Dots set shows how to stamp the background, The ice cream day has cats colored on the back with the ice cream, and every set is like this, except for the tiny sets, because these are so small, they don't have the illustrations on the back. But other sets, every set has an example of how the images are colored. Now, the last stamp set I have is the Snow Happy set with a darling winter scene. And here on the back, you can see how beautifully it is colored. There is one more set in this release called Christmas Tree Cat. I don't have it here, but here's a photo. It is just as cute as the rest of the stamps in this release. Okay, I bet by now you are ready to watch me make some cards, so let's get right to it. My first card features the Snow Happy stamp set. I planned the image placement, and here I've already positioned the stamps on a panel of Neenah Solar White cardstock inside my Mini Misty stamping tool. I will use this paper and my Misty for all of the cards I'm sharing today. I'm inking the images with Memento Tuxedo Black ink and stamping onto the panel. Now lately, I prefer to use Memento as it is simply the best ink for stamping images that you plan to color with any brand alcohol markers. Now, on the other hand, if you plan to add any water-soluble medium over the stamped images, the images that are stamped in Memento, using Memento is not the best option as it will bleed when it comes in contact with water. This is just something to keep in mind. I've had my Memento ink pad for probably 8 years now, if not more. It has moved with me to the United States and back to Ukraine, and I haven't refilled it a single time. I do need to get a refill and refill this ink pad as it is barely giving me any ink now, but it still does the job well. Now it's time to do some coloring. I have the packaging right here for inspiration. I will use the colors from the packaging and try to replicate the same result on my card. I'm starting with B00 to color the sky, and I'll also use B000 marker higher up in the sky, and a colorless blender marker to soften the colors a bit. Now, my coloring style here is not going to be perfect. I am aiming for messy, illustrative type of coloring. I'm not making sure to color every last bit of white. I will not be focusing on blending the colors too much. In fact, you'll see me do no blending at all most of the time, similar to my alcohol marker no blending coloring style. But in addition to that no blending style, I'm adding the messiness of not coloring every last bit of the image in. I'm also using W1, W3, and W5 markers to color the bunny. This is a warm gray color family. A long time ago, I've learned that it is best to use warm gray to color living things and cool gray to color objects. So for example, I colored the bunny with W markers, warm gray markers. If there was a lamppost in this image, for example, I would color the lamppost, an object, a cool gray using C markers. So just a little tip for you in case you were wondering about the differences in all of the gray markers out there. Next, I picked several brown colors and colored the fawn brown, starting with E51. And you can see I didn't color the entire body of the animal. I left visible brushstrokes in the middle to help mimic fur. Next, I used E33 to add shading and color variation to the fur. And again, my application style here is very messy. I come back to the E51 and add a bit more of the lightest brown color. And I also use the E37 as the darkest to deepen the shadows and add more dark brown to the fur. And surprise, surprise, this turned out quite good. I love the result, and this is all thanks to having that sample illustration on the back of the packaging right next to me when I was coloring. You can also look up Anita's illustrations online. I was in bed the other day and I went to Pinterest on my phone. I typed Anita Jeram and oh my goodness, a world of her illustrations popped off the page at me. The most darling little rabbits, cats, mice, dogs, hamsters, you name it. So if you struggle with picking the right colors, or if you are needing a bit of inspiration, or a ton of inspiration really, you can look up Anita's illustrations online, and I'm sure that will help you jumpstart your mojo. While I was chatting, I colored the tree brown. I used the same browns, and I colored the leaves green. I ended up coloring them using YG63 marker to have them appear a little bit less vibrant green. I also added shading to the snow using W1 and W3 markers, and now I'm adding spots to the back of the fawn using a white paint pen from Jane Davenport. I'm trying to make sure that the spots are not a perfect circle. The tip of the pen does give me a circle, but I'm adding dots at a slight angle and dragging the pen just a tiny bit, and that alters the shape of the dot a bit and makes the spot look a bit more real. With the coloring finished, I stamped a sentiment onto this panel, although I later cropped the panel quite a bit so that the top part of the sentiment was cut off. The sentiment reads, "My wish for you that your heart be as light as a snowflake, that your troubles melt away like snow, and a drift of blessing surround you." It is a 3-part sentiment, and each part can be stamped in a different color of ink, allowing you to customize it as much as you want. I stamped all 3 parts in black as that worked best for my card. Next, I added some additional snowballs and used a small white pen, this is Sakura size 10, to add snow dots in the sky. I also used frosted lace stickles. This is basically fancy glitter glue to add some glitter to the snow parts of the image. I then used my finger quite a bit to smush it down and also blend it over the background a bit. Now, this is where memento ink becomes tricky, as if you add too much stickles, the memento might start to bleed. So just be careful at this step of the process. To finish the card, I made a dry embossed background using a love stripe embossing folder from Fun Stamper's Journey. I embossed it on white cardstock and adhered to A2 white card base. I also trimmed my panel and I extended the snow background to the edges of the panel so that it looked continuous. Now, the panel was trimmed to 3.5 by 4 3/4 of an inch. I foam mounted the panel onto the card and also added my wish for you sentiment, which I stamped onto a banner and die cut using a Spellbinder's die. I cut it from light blue cardstock to sort of match the color of the sky on the card, and that finished the card number 1. Now, my next project is a birthday card made with a birthday wishing stamp set. I stamped the image of the bunny holding the balloon and a darling hamster next to him, along with a sentiment that reads, "Today is all about you." This is a very simple, very basic, but such a pretty scene. Again, I pulled out the back of the packaging for coloring inspiration, and I used a W1 warm gray marker to color the hamster, as well as E33 to add brown spots. And this was so fun. I never colored like that before. I always had to blend everything together, and it kind of felt liberating doing spot coloring like this. Very cool, and I encourage you to give it a try. I also used R20 marker to color the noses and the inside of the ear pink. I was bringing my Copic Hex chart in so I could try and find the most suitable colors for my coloring. I was trying to match the colors of Copics that I have to the colors used on the sample illustrations. You don't really have to do that, but I've found that to be a lot easier. I used E31 to color the bunny, as shown in the illustration, along with the E33 marker to add some darker spots. Now, the balloon was colored with a B000, and I left sections of the balloon white, free from the coloring, to act as highlights, and also added B00 and later added a bit of B02 marker to add darker blue shadow under the balloon. I trimmed this panel down to about 3.5 by 4 3/4 inches. Next, I used these stripes and dots background stamp to create a background for this card. Again, very similar to the packaging. I used my larger Misty stamping tool, a panel of light blue cardstock, I think this is Hero Arts Arctic, and I did tone-on-tone stamping using a watermark ink from Hero Arts. I just moved the panel up a bit and re-stamped the stripes until I had the entire background filled with these images, making a cute striped background for my card. Now, if you don't have a Misty, you can stamp a background like this using these stripe stamps and a clear block. You just mount the stamp on the clear block and stamp it like that. I do find it much easier to use the Misty, as I can just position the stamp once, especially this larger Misty. As like I said, I positioned the stamp once and then I just move my panel a little bit, stamping the entire background of the card. I adhered the background panel onto A2 white side-folding card base. I love the way that this background turned out. Very simple, very cute. Now I also added shading under the animals using W1 and W3 markers and foam mounted the panel onto the card. Lastly, I used some light blue gems or jewels from Pretty Pink Posh to embellish this project and add a little bit of sparkle and shine to it. Now, this ended up being my favorite card of all the projects I have for you today. I love the simple coloring style of these images, and I'm so glad that I gave this coloring style a try. Now, my next card is also a birthday one, and it uses the same stamp set but other images. I have mice here, and they are carrying a gift. The sentiment reads, "Today is the day for wishing and smiling and celebrating you." I found a simple illustrated mouse on another packaging, and I sort of followed that example when coloring my mice. I used R20 for the ears and then colored the mice with W1, W3, and just a hint of W5. I kept my mice white for the most part. I also added that same pink, R20, to their tails. Somehow I wanted the tails to look pretty pink. I don't know why. Again, no blending was done here. Very simple coloring, just basic color application without worrying about blending and making it perfect. For the gift, I used RV00, RV10, and RV23 to make it pink. Well, I intended to start with the RV00, but I got my markers mixed up, and I started with the RV10. Regardless, I then also used yellow markers to color the bow. I went with Y11, Y15, and Y35, and later I also added a little bit of the RV13 to color the gift more pink, I guess, and alter the shade of the pink a little bit. To make the background for this card, I once again used the Stripes and Dots stamp set. I first refilled my watermark ink pad so I didn't have to stamp so hard. With the freshly re-inked ink pad, I was able to get better impressions right away, and I had to apply a lot less pressure when stamping. Lately, I've noticed that when I stamp using a MISTI tool, my wrist starts to hurt as I tend to press way too hard on the lid of the MISTI, and while I do get great results, I later have pain in the wrist, which bothers me, of course. So re-inking the ink pads and having a freshly inked ink pad really does help, as I have to apply a lot less pressure when stamping. This time, I also added another set of stripes, and I stamped them in white pigment ink over the watermark stripes, or in between the watermark stripes. This added some more interest to the background and even a bit more color to the background panel. I adhered the background onto A2 white card base. I foam mounted my colored panel on top and embellished the card with small clear droplets and pink jewels from Pretty Pink Posh. This ended up being a very girly birthday card with lots of pinks and just a hint of yellow. Not my typical style, but I do love the result. The next card I have for you today uses the lovely frames from This Is Us frames set that I shared at the beginning of this video. I stamped a circle and a square frame once on my panel and then repositioned the images and stamped them again, creating 4 frames on my card front. The idea was to stamp another illustration inside each of the frame to make it look like these are actual frames with art hanging on the wall. I also added the little ties to each of the frame, mimicking the strings with which the frames would be hanging from the wall. Next, I have already made masks for these frames, negative masks. I stamped the same frame images onto printer paper. I had cut out the middle part of the frame, creating a negative mask, a mask that masks everything but the inside of the frame. Now I'm placing the mask on the background and going to stamp the critter inside of the frame. The mask will help me make it look like the critter is framed. I'm using images from the Ice Cream Day stamp set with the cats and also one image of a mouse from the Ice Cream Day mini stamp set. The sentiment for this card will also come from that same mini set. Here, my main goal was to color the inside of the frame, so color the background for each of the critters, and I used very light pastel colors of markers. B000, a light blue, Y11, the light yellow, and YG01, the light green. Next, I colored the critters themselves, and I used pretty much the same colors that I've been using before, keeping the same style of coloring as shown on the illustrated examples on the packaging. I also stamped a light yellow background, a striped background for this card, and once again adhered everything to A2 white card base. I stamped a sentiment onto a piece of light blue cardstock and cut it out to a banner shape using a Spellbinder's banner die. This card was embellished using just the clear droplets from Pretty Pink Posh. Now, I do have one more card to show you. I didn't film the how-to for this project, as it's pretty much the same, but I still wanted to include it in this video. I combined the frame along with the two mini mice images, making a card where it looks like one mouse colored the other mouse eating an ice cream. Now, the sets I've shared in this video are available at various online retailers for the first 2 days after the launch. So today, October 3rd, and tomorrow, October 4th. And after that, on October 5th, they will also become available on the Colorado Craft Company's website. I have links to all of these places in my video description down below in case you'd like to check these stamps out. Also, I have a giveaway for you over on my blog. There's a link in the video description. Leave a comment over on my blog and you'll be entered to win a $35 gift card to the Colorado Craft Company store. I hope you enjoyed this video. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!